All right, guys, so this is going to be a short but sweet one for you. We're going to just cover real quickly how to set up the smart lead conditional routing. So in the last video, we went over the disqualification. Now I want to show you how to route the qualified leads to the right closer. So just a couple slides for you. There is a sort of preconceived belief that a lot of teams have, and that is that round robin is fair, where everyone gets the same leads. And the problem with this is that fair doesn't always equal profitable. Okay. And if you are in the business of, let's say, succeeding, then of course you are in the business of being profitable. And so if your best closer is closing at 35% and your newest closer is closing at 20%, giving them identical leads means losing 15% of potential revenue every single lead that is routed to the wrong person. So you have potentially 50K whales, or let's just say dream ideal clients, going to your junior reps with lower close rates. You have your senior closers with higher close rates getting, let's say, less qualified leads. And potentially you have a mismatch between closers working with leads in different time zones or different languages. Even if you're running, let's say you have a offer that's live in 2 different countries, for example. I know for us, we were running an offer in the US, but also in France. Okay. So it's challenging if you do not route the leads correctly, right? So as I said, if you have a senior closer closing at 35% and a junior closer closing at 20%, if let's just say you have 10 whale leads a month worth 25K each, this gap here is worth $18,000 a month. And just to reiterate this would be $18,000 a month straight to the bottom line, simply just by routing your leads effectively. Okay. And this is just based off of 10 leads. So I want to show you guys how to set up evidence-based routing. So first and foremost, you need to understand what converts. Then you need to analyze who closes it. And then you can configure the routing based off of that evidence. Okay. Let's go ahead and head over to iClosed. And the very first thing that you want to look at is you want to look at the analytics. Okay. And so if we scroll down here in the scheduling cohort, you will be able to see, based on the questions that you ask in your invitee form, who is most likely to book a call, who is most likely to actually convert into a sale, who's most likely to show up, and who's most likely to cancel the call. Okay, so let's just go back to calls. Obviously, this is, of course, a demo account, but you will understand the sort of workflow for you to complete. So for example, this question here, are you able and willing to invest? Now, of course, most people who answer yes to that question are going to be more qualified, probably more likely to close, right? So if this were a live real account, you would probably see here that people who answer yes to this question are going to have a better closing rate. However, with this question, obviously, I would probably disqualify anybody that says no. So this isn't the greatest example. But let's say this question here, what is your current monthly revenue, for example? Well, if they answer, let's say 50 to 250K a month or more than 250K a month, you would probably realize and see that they have a higher close rate. Okay. Now, once you pinpoint what sort of cohort is more likely to close, then you would set up your routing to go to your more qualified closer. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see exactly who your top closers are, right? Another way to look at your closers is if you go to the global data and we go to deals, we can simply view all of the sales here, okay? And we can get an idea as to who is closing what leads, right? So this will give you a more granular view as to each of the deals that have been closed. Okay. You can also look in calls. In calls will also give you a sort of high level overview as to all the different call outcomes. Okay. So this will show you who's resulted in a sale, calls that were resulted in a no sale. If you open this contact card up, you can see why that sale resulted in a no sale, or why that call resulted in a no sale. You can see a follow-up was scheduled. Ideally, you have your closers leaving notes here, right? And so this is where you want to be looking to gather data on who is your top rep. Of course, probably the easiest metric to base it off of is, who's generating the most cash collected. But depending on how big your team is, depending on how many leads and calls you're booking a month, you obviously may want to get a more granular view as to, what closers are best matched with which leads, right? So again, this is where you want to be looking primarily in the analytics inside the scheduling cohort to get an idea of who your best leads are. Calls means who's most likely to book a call. So this is primarily going to give you insight as to who you should be targeting with your campaigns, right? Sales, of course, is going to tell you probably the most important metric, who is most likely to close. Show up rate, though, is also very helpful to know, because if somebody has a very low likelihood of showing up, then you may want to either route those to your junior closers or potentially even disqualify them, because you don't want to be filling your top closers' time with people who have a 33% chance of showing up, right? That would not be ideal. Same thing with cancels. If somebody has a high cancellation rate, let's say this cohort here, for whatever reason, less than 50K a month, let's say they have a high cancellation rate. Well, you don't want to route those people to your best closer. You may want to route them to your more junior closer, or maybe you just want to take the inverse approach where you route, let's say, the cohort with the lowest cancellation rate, the healthiest cancellation rate. You want to route those to your top closer so that you're ensuring your top closer is getting as many at-bats as possible, right? So this is how to understand how to set it up. And now I want to show you quickly how to actually configure it. So you head over to AI Scheduler, go to events, just click on your event, click on conditional routing. And here you're just going to click add conditional routing. And then same thing as disqualification, we can route based on phone number, country code. So this is helpful. Like I said before, if you have, closers in multiple countries or multiple languages, this is one way to ensure that you're matching leads with the right closer. Same thing with time zone. Of course, this can typically be helpful to match based on, location, of course, and also language. And then we can also route based on invitee questions. So what is your current monthly revenue? Let's say I want to route this to my best closer, right? And let's say that is Ismail. I can select the host. Boom, just like that. All of my top qualified leads, because I've identified by looking at the analytics in the dashboard that these are my top qualified leads. I want to route those to my best closer. Now, of course, this question here is quite obvious, right? What is your current monthly revenue? Of course, typically the higher they answer, the more likely they are to be able to afford the services, right? Now, of course, there's other types of questions you may ask that are less sort of like income based and maybe more context based. For example, what type of agency do you run? So let's say you work with other marketing agencies. You might have a question that asks, what type of agency do you run? Maybe you have email agencies, conversion rate optimization agencies, or paid ad agencies, right? And so maybe you want to route specific agencies to specific closers. That's another thing you can do. Okay, so you can obviously get very, very creative with how you set up these conditional routing conditions. Now, what we can also do is you can add additional conditions, just like you can with the disqualification. And let's say we want to route all of the, sorry, we'll select all and then unselect North America. We want to route all of the US based clients to Ismail. Okay, we can do that. And then of course you can choose whether you want to use and, meaning they have to meet both of these conditions, or you can use or, meaning if either one of these are true, please route them to this closer. Now, another thing you can do is you can check this box, and this will route them to Ismail unless Ismail only has 5 slots available, in which case it will assign calls equally to all hosts of the event based on priority. So what this means is if Ismail has less than 5 slots available, it's just going to treat the routing as normal to ensure that the lead has enough slots available to choose from. Okay, so this avoids any situations where the lead jumps on and they only see 2 times available and they don't end up booking because they don't find a time that works for them. So this is helpful. This is sort of like backup routing. So we can go ahead and save changes, and now we have the routing fully configured. So one more thing to show you here is if we go back to data intelligence and we turn on the credit score feature again and hit save and continue, we can go back to the conditional routing and we can add a condition based on the credit score. So let's say I want to route anybody with a high or very good credit score to my top closer. Boom, just like that, I can save changes. And now this is fully configured. So if their current monthly revenue is over 250K a month, or their phone number country code is a +1, or if their credit score is very good or excellent, I will route them to the best closer. Now, because I'm using or, this means that only one of these need to be true. If I want to make sure that all of these need to be true in order to route them to my top closer, I would simply switch it to and. And if I want to make sure that I have this smart fallback in place, I can check this box so that if 5 or less slots are available, it will route to Emily as well based on priority. Okay, and then I can save changes. So just like that, what leads have the highest likelihood of showing up, not canceling, and closing. You know who your best closer is. You just need to figure out who is the best match for each sort of cohort or each sort of answer that you have built into your form, or maybe even phone number, country code, or credit score. And then you just need to take a few minutes to set up this conditional routing. And I promise you, this is going to help you increase not only your close rate, but it's also going to make sure that your closers are more satisfied because they're not going to be jumping on with calls with disqualified people. So take the few minutes to set this up, and I'll see you in the next video.